Hi, I'm Sarah Sprecher, and this is Growing Greens in the Final Frontier. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can we grow plants in space without soil or gravity? Okay, maybe you're not actually thinking that, but NASA is, along with many others. And to explore this question, we'll later look at a modified space garden on the International Space Station, one that could solve issues like being able to sustain longer space flights and rely less on resupply missions to feed a space crew. Certainly a financial incentive there, but also a health one. In order to understand agriculture beyond Earth, we first have to think about a plant. When we do, we're very familiar with its essential needs for growth, even if we don't have a green thumb. At the simplest, we know plants need water, carbon dioxide to use light and photosynthesis, oxygen for cellular respiration. They need the right temperature gradient to structure their microbial communities and perform metabolic activities in order to absorb the nutrients, the nitrogen, the phosphorus, the potassium from their environment to achieve growth. And what do all these factors have in common? Well, they are all found abundantly and effortlessly all over Earth. And the best part is that humans don't have to do anything, they just are. So, how can you grow plants in a place that isn't Earth? The short answer is that it's doable, but it's complicated. And not just because they have to survive in a pressurized vessel that tries to mimic life conditions while hurtling at a speed of, say, 8 kilometers per second. There are real challenges presented with space travel, which can make all plant needs difficult. Water can be transported in space, but again, there's microgravity to worry about, which means droplets that would ordinarily flow into a root system now pool up and bubble, making it difficult for water absorption to occur. With the right water delivery system, there are ways to get around these issues, but there are also risks. Opportunities still exist for contamination of foodborne pathogenic bacteria in the irrigation water, which can threaten the safety of the space crew. Light, especially natural sunlight, is lacking in space environments. Artificial light is an option, but proper lighting parameters have to be met for photosynthetic efficiency. Additionally, space has uniquely high levels of radiation exposure, which can affect plant health and the stability of plant DNA and even cause undesired morphological changes in plant biomass. Air can be made available for both humans and plants to perform respiration, but airborne microbes in a human inhabited contained environment still pose a threat. Plus, spores of bacteria and fungi can originate from high humidity in a growth chamber, creating a major health risk to crops and crew. Temperature is straightforward to manipulate, I'll give it that. The vacuum of space is terribly cold, obviously, but not inside a spacecraft. Optimizing temperature variation for desirable plant growth is important. And nutrients are easy on Earth. Why? Because you don't have to walk far to touch dirt. In space, however, there can be no soil for plants. It's too messy, which means no soil microbiome. This creates a huge dilemma for nutrient uptake. There are alternatives like hydroponics, which uses water as a substrate, or aeroponics, which uses a mist environment. But what do they use on the ISS? Enter the Vegetable Production System, or VEGgie for short. This microgravity friendly growth chamber uses pillows which hold the plants in a clay based growth media and fertilizer, which means we can inoculate them with a consortium of plant growth promoting bacteria. In other words, an artificial soil microbiome. And we already know how to find microorganisms that can survive in space conditions since we can isolate strains from the surfaces of these plants. One such bacterial group, Sphingomonas, is found on the ISS and may express genes that can help with abiotic stress resistance. That could be very useful. The potential of these space bacteria can't be understated, and they will help us unlock new possibilities of growing food in microgravity and providing space crews with fresh produce, which they will no doubt enjoy eating. To prove my point here is astronaut Jessica Meir trying a space grown salad. I will leave you with one question. If you were on a long mission in space and it was the farthest from home you've ever been, how do you think you'd feel the next time you're looking at a plant on Earth? Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.